Anyway, I want to welcome you all here. Kiwanis and Rotary are combining today for this event. And if y'all would stand, we'll bless the food, and then we'll turn it over to Candace and let her get going.
Our Heavenly Father, we are so thankful today that we can gather here to learn more about the great things that are happening in the world of medical science. We are thankful that we have a wonderful hospital here and feel very blessed and fortunate to have such a nice facility as this. We want to thank you for the food and thank everyone who came today. Amen.
Candace?
Larry, thank you. Those were very kind words. That makes me happy. I appreciate you saying that. Welcome. What a great crowd. I'm tickled to death that we had this many people come and want to see what we're doing. Telemedicine has been a game changer for us. It's really boosted our inpatient census, and I was completely speechless today. I thought we were seeing Dr. Rader on there, and I turned around and he's right there. So I didn't even know what to say. So exciting times. I hope that you've been keeping up with how hard it is. We struggle in not only rural hospitals. The bigger hospitals are having to change the way that they operate as well. Healthcare is changing tremendously, and so we got to pay attention. We got to figure out how to play the game differently and to be successful. And St. Anthony is a huge factor and a great partner in that. I was talking to Kelly actually last night. We were reliving that moment of when we went to talk to some folks about partnering with St. Anthony and making that change, going away from the management company that we were under. And I think we all can attest that St. Anthony has been a great partner and a huge factor in helping us sustain and thrive. So with that, can I tell what we're doing tonight? Pretty exciting. Tonight we should be signing a family practice doctor to come to town. He's a hard worker, from what I've been told, and people love him, and some of you probably see him already. He's coming from Enid, so stay tuned. We will be able to announce that shortly, so we're pretty excited about that. Anything else you want me to tell them? All right, well, with that, I'm going to turn it over to the two people that make this little gig happen. Dr. Rader from Mark 5. Dr. Rader is the Chief of Staff at St. Anthony Hospital. He also has Mark 5, which is the hospitalist group. He's going to tell you, explain that a little bit more because people really don't understand kind of that connection. Regina Wilson, come on up. I want you up here too. Regina's the one who typically rounds with Dr. Rader and his colleagues with the telemedicine. So I'm going to let them tell you about it and ask questions. Thank you.
All right, so a little bit, just real briefly about the connection. Mention about St. Anthony and Mark 5 in my group. I was on faculty at St. Anthony Hospital. I trained there. I was on faculty. And as medicine began to change, primary care physicians less and less went to the hospital. So you're still pretty fortunate out here. You do have some people that can go to the hospital, and they still do. But the outpatient practice has become so hard and so laborious and takes up so much time that it's really difficult to take care of patients in the hospital as well. And the finances don't really provide for that as well, so it's just really difficult. And we were seeing that down at St. Anthony Hospital, and patients come to the hospital, there's nobody to take care of them, so they would sign them to the faculty and the residency, and we were just getting overwhelmed, as most hospitals around the country were. And so this new idea of a hospitalist, where the doctors just were in the hospital and they took care of those patients when they came in. And I was involved in some of those early discussions. We talked to the president of the hospital and said, hey, here's some ideas we have about a program, thinking that he would take that and go get somebody else to do it. And he said, that sounds good, go do it. Kind of like good CEOs do. And next thing I knew, I called my wife when I walked out the meeting and said, I think I got a new job and I'm not sure I like it. And it has been quite a challenge. But it started with me by myself, rapidly trying to recruit more doctors. And we now have 18 physicians that work 7 on, 7 off. And then we have 5 PAs as well in our group, and I've just hired 4 more physicians. So it's just an area that continues to grow. And Mark 5 is the company, and we have now broke off as employed to St. Anthony, so now we subcontract back to the hospital to provide that line of service. So that's kind of a little bit about that. One of my hats I wore with St. Anthony Hospital was with kind of what we call our rural outreach program. Being from smaller towns, especially this area, as well as the president of our hospital at the time, who's now the regional president, Joe Hodges from Beaver, or actually from Forgan, from that area, really kind of shared this understanding of what it means to be in rural Oklahoma. I think if you don't grow up in rural Oklahoma, everybody tends to think that the state is Oklahoma City and Tulsa, and the state is really the rural landscape. And what we tried to do, I did a lot of moonlighting during school, and I would be in an emergency room and have a really sick patient, but I couldn't figure out, nobody would accept them anywhere. And if they did, it'd take 2 or 3 hours of different phone calls. And so we kind of just got this idea, hey, maybe we can transfer these patients a whole lot quicker by doing a lot of that work on our side, and that's kind of really how it started, and it's grown from there, with the idea that we want to try to keep as much as we can possibly in the local community, which is different than the big hospitals have done in the past, where they tend to try to pull everything downtown, down to Oklahoma City, and it really kind of dry up the local hospitals, and that's not at all what's going to make our community stronger. And so that's been our kind of driving principle. You couple that with this fact that as people are coming out of residency, young doctors coming out of residency, we're in a different age group of people. And the old doctor that was willing to just kind of hang up a shingle and take all comers, there's 720 hours in a month, and a lot of those guys work about 700 hours. And that's still what happens if you take ER call, you admit your patient to the hospital, and you cover your clinic. There's a lot of hours there. And the younger physicians just are not willing to do that. I want to come in at 8 o'clock, I want to be done at 5, and they'll call me after that. And that's just the way it is. And so when you try to recruit physicians to local communities, we're just seeing that the residents we talk to, they really don't want any part of that. And so if you can separate the hospital part of the work out of that, they're more than willing to come into towns. And a lot of them want to live in rural Oklahoma. They really want to, but they understand what happens when they start dangling their toe into that pool. All of a sudden, they look around and they're the only ones there, and they cover everything, and they don't want any part of that. And so what we are hoping that by doing some of the hospitalist work, we will be able to allow them to, you'll see some recruiting, and you'll hopefully see some of these younger physicians willing to come into communities and set up shop and stay there for the long run, knowing that they can get some help in the background. So a little bit more to why you came today, and I know I kind of messed this up by being here in person, because what you really wanted to see was the technology stuff. It's messed up, I apologize. First, I always try to start the telemedicine presentations with just laying the foundation that there is nothing like a physician in the room at the bedside. That's just reality. But the other reality is it's becoming more and more unfeasible to have that everywhere we need it. And so you either have to close the hospital because there's nobody to do it, or the patients transfer down And so we're starting to look at other ways to do that, and this is one of those tools. And so when I see a patient down at St. Anthony Hospital, I walk in the room, I gather the history, talk to them, discuss with them, gather some information, and then I do my exam, and then I tell them what I think my assessment is, the plan, and then I do my computer work to do all the orders and everything that needs to happen. And with the advent of the electronic health record and some of the technology that we have, I can do essentially the same thing through telemedicine. Now, the only thing that's lost is you can't touch the patient. It's not insignificant, but with the nurses, especially very experienced nurses that you guys have, I can do those exams by proxy and still get a good understanding of what's going on by watching those clues. And so I've diagnosed acute appendicitis, gallbladder, all the things that I would normally diagnose in person, I can do through telemedicine with a good nurse-guided exam. One benefit of this that I've really enjoyed, in a lot of the hospitals around the state, especially the smaller hospitals, the nurse is still around with the doctors. I very rarely get around with a nurse at St. Anthony. I mean, they're going. And there may be a tech in there, but I very seldom see the nurse that's caring for the patient. So it's all gathered through records, through what I can hear from them. When I do telemedicine, every single time I get to round with the nurses taking care of the patient, I love it. I get so much more information about what's going on. So in some ways, it's actually an advantage for me. Plus, they're guiding my exam, saying, hey, I want you to look at this right here, and I want you to listen right here because I heard this right here. And it's different than them telling me, hey, when you go in there, listen to that left side of the line. They're saying, here is where I heard what I'm concerned about, and then I hear what they're hearing. So there's a lot of advantages to it. So the monitor, and again, I messed it up because I'm not there to dial in, so I apologize. There's two monitors. One of them has my face on it, and one of them has what I'm seeing on the other end, so it's a reflection of the patient, which is very interesting because we very often have patients kind of fixing themselves up. So they can tell what I'm seeing, and then I can see. This camera is a very high-powered, high-definition camera. I can control it from the other end. I have toggle switches on the computer, and I can control it. I can look around the room. It's 180, a little bit past 180, so I can swing both sides. I can zoom in. I can zoom in really close, and so I can see in some ways better than I could even if I were in the room on some things because it's such a high magnified camera. It is high definition, a very, very, very good camera. We have a stethoscope. So when we get to the stethoscope piece, I can listen. This sounds just like I'm in the room. I mean, there really is no difference than if I've transferred patients down that I know had murmurs, and then I walk in the room and listen to them, and I can't hear the same thing I heard on the telemedicine. And so, in some ways, I think it may be a little bit more sensitive. It's real time. There's very little lag. It's not like the TV interviews where they're doing a satellite interview and they're kind of talking over each other because there's lag time. There's very little lag on this because it's very, very fast. There is also otoscope, and so this is an otoscope just like what they would use in the clinic. It has the speculum that goes on the end of it, so I can, very high-powered camera, I can look in the ears, I can look in the throat, I can look very closely inside. And then this is an exam camera. This is actually a dermatology exam camera. We do some telemedicine dermatology, and we take advantage of this in the hospital as well. This actually allows me to take pictures. You can hold it down really close. I can see hair follicles almost like it's under a microscope. And so when I'm looking at a skin lesion or something that I can't get to with the camera, the nurses can take this off and look at it. And so I can see, like I said, in some ways better than I could if I were trying to get down with the naked eye. And so, again, the only thing that I can't do is the palpation exam. But I think we've gotten pretty good with that, with coaching the nurses through it, and I can direct the exam. There's very few things that I'll pick up in real life that I don't kind of already know are there. Either the ER doc has already picked it up or the nurse has picked it up, and then I just kind of confirm that exam. And so really usually don't get any surprises from the abdominal exams. So that's kind of the overview. It's an impressive piece of machinery. I really expect that probably over the next 3 years, 5 years, this will just be a little skinny pole with a camera hanging off of it and a peripheral device. Probably none of this will be attached. It'll all be Bluetooth, and so it won't even be connected. Probably all run through an iPhone. So this right now is pretty bulky when it goes in, but I don't think it'll stay that way. I think there's already devices on the market that are a lot more sleek and work really well. So that's my feel. Regina, give your.
Well, we really enjoyed the fact that Dr. Rader and his group is doing this. It gives our doctors some rest. Dr. Kinsey, I don't know how she's done what she's done the whole time that she's been here. We greatly appreciate her, but with the support of our local physicians, that's the reason this is working so well. We, still let the doctors know when their patients are in. Dr. Kinsey will pop in and say hi to her patients and things like that. There's no separation, from the physician and the care that's going on with their group. It all works well together. We're able to get a hold of Dr. Rader and his group at any time, and that's the thing that we get asked by the patients sometimes is, well, they're not here anymore. What if I need something later on? Well, they're available to us 24/7, and that's the thing that I feel like is the most asked question from the patients is once they leave the room, when do we get to see them again? When do we hear from them? So we're in constant contact, and through the emergency department, those physicians in urgent care contact Dr. Rader and his group if there's an admission, talks about the patient, and they discuss the care before the patient comes to the floor. But we really enjoy this program, and all of the nurses have embraced it, and we learn each day with rounding with the physicians and things like that. The transition for transfer is absolutely amazing. Dr. Rader said they need to be transferred. He's their doctor down there. There's no separation there, so the continuity of care is carried through. And those are some of the most important things that I feel like that has made a difference for our patients here.
Yeah, I'm glad. The other thing I want to say, and what you said, is the thing that makes this really work. It makes me nervous when people want to give me credit for it. All I am is on the other end of the phone, other end of the machine. Really, the thing that makes this work is the thing that makes this work is actually the nurses and the local providers that are supporting it. Obviously, if there's an emergency, we have somebody there that's willing to take care of it. They really, your staff and everybody's been so amazing with the support. And one of the things that I found, medicine's really kind of broken down. I'm pretty simple. Medicine's kind of broken down into 3 areas. There's a surgical area, there's a medicine area, and there's a psychiatric area. The surgical area, there's a lot of technical procedures and advancements that everybody likes to see, and that's a lot of those are done at tertiary care hospitals. When you get into the medicine area, most everything can be done here that can be done at St. Anthony Hospital. A lot of times people all sign on and people are really, you can tell they're anxious, they want to transfer, they think there's some magic that we have that's not here. And then, if you want 15 different doctors to walk in and talk to you, then yeah. But really there's not any, most of what we do in medicine, unless you need to go to an ICU and get dialysis and ventilator and some of those sorts of things, which if you need that, we make that happen pretty quick. But short of that, pretty much everything can happen right here. They have the same medicines, great nurses, you're cared for by people that know you. It's certainly a whole lot easier for families to be able to come and visit people. And what I see when people transfer in is I see families just wear out because they're displaced, and most of these illnesses take quite a bit of time to recover. And so I don't see that when I sign in to rural hospitals. I see families that can come and go, they can go home and sleep at home, and the patients are getting great care right locally. And I think to me that's the biggest win to all of it.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. It's very humble, obviously.
I'm open to questions if you have questions.
I've got a question. Is this going to make it where a person can get a stress electrocardiogram or?
We do that here.
You
We do
that?
stress tests. Mm-hmm.
Right here?
Treadmills,
Right
yep.
here in Sharon?
We do. Dr. Mullins.
Treadmill, what about one where it's not standing or walking? The stress, like it's on a reclining
Oh,
bike or something like
like
that?
the
We don't.
injectable, yeah. What do you call that? Yeah, we don't do that one.
It's possible though that you could.
Yeah, a lot of those things are based on volumes, and as things get busier and people get more comfortable and the technology advances, we'll see more and more of those things being able to be done locally.
So are you the only doctor down there that works through this, or is there a cardiologist down there that works through this?
Yeah, we have some cardiologists that do some clinic, but most of the cardiologists, like Dr. Mullins, drives out here and does a clinic, which makes it really nice. I've had patients in the hospital, and I'll call her and say, hey, are you headed out there? And she says, I'm in Kingfisher, what do you need? And hey, can you drop by this room and see the patient? And so, she comes out in person. Yeah, we do have some telemedicine cardiology clinics. But right now, most of the cardiologists still drive out and see the patients. And a lot of that is so they can do some of those interpretations locally.
What about ultrasonography? Would they do that through this machine?
No, they don't do through this machine, but they do it locally. Yeah, they do it here.
We have one that comes twice a week. Ah! Steve, I think you're first.
We've all read about the positive experiences in the newspaper that people have had with telemedicine. Can you share any negative experiences or
No, there have not been any.
situations where telemedicine isn't appropriate or it doesn't work as well?
Yeah, probably the technology is probably the biggest, as you would guess, the biggest wild card. If the internet starts getting glitchy, start having some problems, which we've never had here. We have a couple sites where their connection just isn't that great. This machine itself is glitchy. I mean, these things kind of stick out, and somebody bump it into a wall, and all of a sudden your connection doesn't work. I mean, it's really more of an equipment issue than anything. I am very, very careful. Anything that seems to get makes me nervous clinically, we just get the patient downtown. And so we don't really take any chances at all from a clinical perspective. I don't know that I've really had anything from a clinical perspective. Your electronic health record here is different than the one we use everywhere else. And so it's kind of like trying to translate everything into Spanish, and so sometimes that gets a little difficult, but that's just a matter of learning it, and it's not a huge hurdle. I can't really think, honestly, we've been doing this a little over a year, I can't really think of anything clinically, but we really go through the details before we start. We have several meetings and we talk about, okay, in this situation, who's going to handle this? And then somebody starts deteriorating, who's going to be the person that's going to be at the bedside? And we talk to all the ER docs that are covering, or the ER providers everywhere we are, saying, look, if somebody's deteriorating in the middle of the night, are you going to be willing to come up and cover? And so everybody really is pretty clear about what happens if they need a live body on site. And so we try to run those traps ahead of time. And so far we really have not had any clinical situations that I've been real nervous about.
I know you were asking about things that don't go well, but I think one of the things that's been the most helpful is that we would admit patients, and sometimes even when their doctor is here, things go wrong. The patient gets worse, something happens. Making a transfer to another hospital at 2 in the morning when the patient goes bad is incredibly hard. Like Dr. Rader said, we can call someplace, it might be hours before we can get someplace to answer. And we kind of have to know where we're sending them before we can get transportation. So it all feeds together. This way, there is patience. There's a place for them. We know where they're going. If something goes wrong, we call the helicopter or the ambulance and we say they're going to St. Anthony's, and then we figure out the rest of it. I mean, we're able to make that transition so much smoother.
Dr. Kinsey brings up a good point. Well, one, Dr. Kinsey is here on her day off, and I caught her in her office with her stethoscope, and she's working. That's not unusual for her to be here on her day off, but it reminded me, seeing her sitting here, that what this program has allowed It has allowed our doctors to have a day off if they need to, a weekend off if they need to. His service, we just admit patients to his service, and it allows Dr. Kinsey, she's looking at me like she never takes off. She doesn't really. She's thinking maybe I should take off. But it allows her to do that if needed. It allows Dr. Self, if needed, to get out of town. So that's huge. That is absolutely huge to have a staff backup like that. You have no idea what we've spent on locums doctors to cover for us. It's an incredible amount of money, and this program has helped us skirt around that, because I would have had to go hire locums so that our doctors could get out of here once in a while. So thank you.
The new doctor that you're signing, the new doctor that may sign on tonight, is he influenced by this, pro or con?
Yeah, he is. He actually has his own business that does this.
Oh.
He's all up there in it. Yes, sir. Terry.
Two questions Randy was gonna ask you. How much does the machine cost?
Oh, I
Tell us now.
I think the entire setup is $25,000 to $30,000. I think that's that's a little bit old technology.
And they
there.
provided it. Was it through a grant?
Yeah, there was some grants, and St. Anthony provided it.
St. Anthony provided this machine for us. We just had to pay for it.
And the second thing that comes to my mind is that, I'm a share hospital, but I'm being treated by a doctor at St. Anthony. I mean, is there any insurance or has there been any issues with that? Of insurance providers paying the claims?
Yeah, we've had some, and of course we had to kind of work out agreements on how all that was going to work from our standpoint. But I don't think from the patient standpoint you'll really be able to tell much. Either the insurance pay for it or they don't pay for it. So I either get paid or I don't get paid.
It's him. It's not. Yeah, it's him, whether he
but
gets
the answer is yes.
I'm not dealing with you on one hand, and I come up here and I've got a share facility I'm using, but I'm using the St. Anthony's, so I've got two claims going different ways. Or
Yeah.
one
If your insurance will reimburse telemedicine, then I get paid because I'm on all the plans. If your insurance does not pay for telemedicine,
You got care for free.
I get it for free.
Well, my
So.
dad was just taken care of here by Dr. Rader, and we just got the bill. I can tell you it's very reasonable, very reasonable.
Cool. Who else?
How long will that machine go for, Sharon? Before you have to get into the new technology?
Yeah, we're gonna have to start looking. SSM, which is the corporate entity that has St. Anthony, is looking at the solutions. I mean, telemedicine is here; it's real. They didn't, they were a little hesitant to put a lot of money in the technology until they kind of figured out how it's going to be used. But I think we see that this is real. It's going to stay here. It's working. And so right now there's a whole team looking at what's the technology need to look like, what vendors do we need to use, and so within the next couple of years we'll have completely different.
Are you using the new stuff anywhere else?
No. That I say that in Wisconsin, one of the SSM entities is doing some things, but they're doing outpatient medicine with it, and so it's mainly coughs and colds and stuff like that, and so it doesn't really translate to what we're doing here. But it'll be a little bit more integrated and separated. Right now, it's a little bulky because it's limited, and this is probably one of the hardest parts. Is you have all these cords, and the nurse is trying to manage this and have the patient listen, and it's just not as sleek as it needs to be. But again, all of this, the stethoscope will be completely separated in a little box, and you'll have a nice thin camera, and it won't take up here as much room, and pray forget it's in there. We're not too far away from that. So the answer to your question, this will last long enough, but we're nearing the end of life of it. We're really using it for things it wasn't designed for.
Regina, how many nurses locally are trained to operate this thing?
Every nurse that we have in the facility has the capabilities of utilizing the equipment. And we have probably 15 nurses altogether, 15, 18 nurses. And we were in service on it, worked with St. Anthony. They actually came out and helped us go through the equipment, how to utilize it, the pros, the cons, things to watch out for. But I've been doing telemedicine about 3 years with teledermatology, cardiology, and teleendocrinology. So we've had the equipment for about 3 years.
Since you said that, one of my visions for this, my hope is, as I'm manning the doctor's lounge and talking to people, and they're starting to hear about what I'm doing, and I still bounce cases off of them. They don't officially consult, but I say, hey, I've got this patient, what do you think? And they'll give me some clues, and so I kind of get a curbside consult, and then we go apply the care. But I really think eventually, in the not too near future, we'll actually be able to have some real-time consults by kidney specialists, heart specialists, when I just need to know, okay, is this somebody that really needs to transfer? Because a lot of times we transfer somebody down there because we're starting to get a little nervous, but then we don't do anything different when we get there. We just had somebody render an opinion and say, well, we're not really going to do anything different. Well, now we transferred them, and I'm like, well, I wish we wouldn't have transferred. And so that could be done with a consult. And I don't think we're very far away from that as we get a little bit more comfortable with it. When you were asking about insurance, I thought you were talking about malpractice insurance. And that's on the forefront of a lot of the specialists, and I had to work really hard with my insurer, Plico, and as well as the state legislature and the state board. This took us about 2.5 years to get everybody kind of comfortable with this. And actually, the thing that finally turned the tables on it, Dr. McCaffrey, who's a pediatrician, neonatologist at OU, actually did a visit with a neonate, a preterm neonate that was in a hospital in Lawton, did it during the medical board meeting with the physicians of the medical board in the room, and they kind of thought, well, I guess if you can do it with that patient, you can do it with anybody. So that really kind of swayed, but it took a long time to get all of that through. But now more and more people are recognizing that insurers pay for it. Most of them are starting to pay for it just like a real life appointment, and medical boards are starting to look at it just like a regular appointment, as well as malpractice as well. So it's really becoming more and more accepted.
What do you have parameters of everybody that comes in the hospital? Is that used as a hospitalist type situation? Everybody is telemedicine that's admitted? Is that
It's really up to your primary care physician. If your primary care physician wants to take care of you in the hospital, I don't really approach it as an all or none. A lot of hospitalist programs are that way. If I'm going to be there, I get everybody. But I feel like this is, your physician's your physician, and if they have the bandwidth to try to take care of it in the hospital, that's fine. If not, then I certainly stand beside them and help. But it really is up to the physician.
Yeah, I would say you've been seeing a lot of patients who normally would not get admitted to this hospital because they don't have a local doctor. And so those people come in and they see you, and then a lot of them end up following up with me. So we do get them in and get them into a local doctor. Quite a few people from Great Salt Plains, though, are also coming here to get admitted, which those people typically would have been sent to Enid because we're just so overwhelmed trying to run the clinic. And
Sometimes Dr. Kinsey lets her patients be admitted to the service because it allows her to see more patients. If she has to have patients in the hospital, one patient takes an hour.
Yeah, usually, and if everything's going smoothly, a lot of times it's no big deal to have patients in the hospital. But if one thing goes wrong, then my whole clinic is, just completely disrupted as I'm trying to find a place to transfer the patient to. I have to tell Dr. Rader here in front of everybody, I usually go in and see my patients when they're in the hospital, and I'll go in and I'll say, hey, Dr. Rader's going to be your doctor here, and I keep an eye on what's going on, and people will say, well, can't you come and be my doctor? And I said, well, I just don't have time. Dr. Rader's going to write my notes.
Thanks.
So, yeah, he's a glorified scribe.
Actually, there's some praise in there as well, I think, because you know, if she felt like she was having to correct everything, I wouldn't be writing her notes. Evidently, we're thinking pretty close to the same, so that's
Actually,
a good,
she has
a
said
good
that.
sign.
I've heard that out of her mouth. He
So-
does, he does what I would do, so, perfect. Any other questions?
I just think it's noteworthy. I think since we started this, on average, about 5 extra patients a day that have been able to stay here in Alva to get their care. So the things that he spoke of, with the families not having to travel to Oklahoma City or to Enid, that are able to stay here and get the care by people that know them, love them, and people that they then trust, makes a world of difference in your care. It's usually faster recovery and less taxing on your family. And so that's a big win-win, not only for the people in the community to be able to get their care here, but it's a big win-win also for your hospital.
I think another positive thing, I don't even know if Dr. Rader knows this or not, but we had a patient in the hospital that one of the family members, that's an attorney, works at the state capitol, was involved in a lot of the telemedicine regulations and things like that put forth at the state. And he was rounding one day, and so this person, because it was his family member, got on FaceTime with one of the family members in the room, and they watched his exam on the patient, and they were really pleased to see what they had worked for and put in place was working so wonderful out here in Alva, Oklahoma. And when it was over with, they said, oh, well, they really like this. And I get on there, and the person's there. I'm like, you were watching this? Yeah. So anyway, they were really pleased with the way we operate things here and to see what a difference it was making in our community, and especially with it being a family member. They were very, very pleased.
But they don't know that I can hear down the hall with my step or with my machine. I can hear who's whispering at the nurse's station. I can zoom that camera. I usually catch a family member doing this. They don't think I can see. I guess.
We give him a hard time too, sometimes we do. All right, any other questions? Well, I appreciate you coming today. Great attendance. I appreciate you taking time out of your day to come and learn a little bit more about our telemedicine program, and I want to thank Dr. Rader for being here in person. He was supposed to be on the camera. I was very shocked. So that's a huge thing to have him come out and take that time out of his day. He'll have to pay for it when he gets back. And that work will still be there. So, all right. Well, thank you very much.